Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 295 of our Tick Bootcamp podcast. The title of today's interview is Balance for Gold, an interview with Axel Roelants. My name is Matt Sabatello.
My name is Richard Johannesson.
This podcast episode is powerful in so many ways. Axel provides specific ways he had to bring balance to his life in order to heal from Lyme disease. He was an extreme adrenaline junkie who was always on the go until he crashed from Lyme disease. He fought for a proper diagnosis after getting misdiagnosed and continuing to decline. And once diagnosed, he refused to accept the fact that he couldn't get better. He kept fighting and trying new things until ultimately he went from being bedbound and debilitated to now working 6 days a week, some days 10 to 12 hours a day. We're really excited to share Axel's story with you. So without further ado, Axel Roelants.
Hey, Axel Roelants, and welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for taking time out of your really busy schedule as an athlete and an entrepreneur to join us on the podcast. Well, why don't we start with that? Talk to us a little bit about your career as an athlete and your career as an entrepreneur.
I've been born in a family that did sports always for like motocross. So I started at a very young age to ride with bikes together with my brother, who is a bit older, and it was really well in the sport. So I always followed him around in the world and tried to ride my bike as much as possible until, what happened. And I was doing this really with a smile on my face and everything was going perfect. And from an entrepreneurship side, I was also born in a family that is really entrepreneurial. So my dad has a big company. So I was always looking up to him, what he was doing, how he was working so much. So that's got the entrepreneurial side of me. I started a food supplement company a couple of years ago, and that's also growing really well. So I'm always high performance until the disease got along.
So, Axel, talk to us a little bit more about your food supplement company. What's the name of the company, and how did you come to build this company?
The name is For Gold because we are always looking for gold. We are not settling for silver, and I wanted some high quality supplements on the market. And that's why we came up to it. I do this with two good friends of mine. One is a pro athlete, a really well-known cyclist. And the other one is a really good friend of mine who got diagnosed with Crohn's disease and also had big problems with his gut. And we wanted to do something for the world and for top athletes to get good supplements for good gut health with all the necessary things you need to perform on a high level.
So, Axel, your English is very proper, so folks know that you're not a New Yorker for sure. So why don't you share with us where you're calling in from today and where do you live?
I'm from Belgium originally, and I'm still living here. It's not the goal to stay here because I don't think Belgium has a nice future for me. That comes with the air and the sun. We don't have so much Sundays like you have in the south of Europe, for example, Portugal, where I stayed for almost 1 year last year to get my healing up for a top notch. Belgium is stressful, people are stressful, jobs are stressful, and I'm looking more to go south and get a little bit more of a relaxing life.
So now, talk to us about what it was like to grow up in Belgium. You're a child of a business professional, and so talk to us what it was like during your childhood in Belgium.
Of course, I was going to school every day, and after school, I was riding in the forest with my little BMX bike, with our little pit bikes. We were running around, biking, riding with the bikes. Every day was one big party. I was living in a quite a big place with a little forest where we could ride every day, and
So So you began your early athletic life first as a cyclist, right? A BMX cyclist, and then you graduated and you began to use motorcycles, and motocross became a passion. So talk to us about how you made that transition from BMX to ultimately motocross.
So yeah, I was not doing anything professional or something, but I was just riding a lot of motocross when I was young. So yeah, this was doing me well. I really loved it. It was not professional. It was just, yeah, for fun. But then later on, when I had like, I was like 11, 12 years old, it got, yeah, really much fun. I was doing more competition because my brother was racing in the world category. So yeah, I started to race more and more, only just for fun. Then I stopped school when I was 17 because I could not focus well in school. Now I know why, before I didn't. And yeah, then I started to do motocross on a bit of a higher level, but just in Belgium. That was also going really well until I got sick.
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about first your early life as a BMX enthusiast, and then ultimately we'll talk about graduating into the BMX world and working as a professional athlete. Now, you said you were spending a lot of time in the forest when you were riding your BMX bikes, and I'm assuming when you were riding your BMX bikes as a child, you used some safety equipment. Were you wearing helmets? Were you wearing elbow pads? Were you wearing knee pads? What kinds of things were you doing to keep yourself safe as a BMX athlete?
We were wearing nothing, just our little shoes, and that's it. We were playing in the forest as little kids. So I have a lot of broken bones. Even though I'm 28, I have, I think, 21 broken bones. So yeah, I can feel it when it's cold in the morning.
All right. So Axel, I'm assuming since you weren't taking many precautions in your cycling and then ultimately motocross career, sounds to me you probably weren't taking many precautions to protect yourself from ticks and tick diseases when you were spending so much time in the forest. Am I correct in my assumption, or were you kind of taking risks on the cycling, but protecting yourself from coming in contact with ticks and tick diseases?
Of course, because I was wearing nothing like protection for ticks, and I was also not aware of it because we are coming from a place in Belgium where there's a lot of forest, and it's very common to get a tick bite. And with the standard things that they say is just take the tick off, and when you don't get the red circle, it's nothing bad, so you don't need to worry about it. So probably I had some tick bites when I was younger. Yeah, I had some because I discussed this with my parents when I got diagnosed. But yeah, we were not protecting it. We were not looking after it. We didn't put sprays on. We were just out there having fun, and yeah, be not so careful.
So let's talk about ticks in Belgium. So you said that you are aware that there are ticks. You were aware that you were bitten by ticks. What did you learn either in the educational system or from your parents about ticks?
Nothing really much. So we have in Belgium at school, you get like the little textbooks, like you have to be careful with the sun, don't get too much in the sun. You get all these kind of things in school. But from a tick bite, they just said take it off, and that's it. When you go on camp with school, you have like 3 or 4 kids in a full camp that get a tick bite, but yeah, they just take it out and they don't worry about it. Only later on, when you get sick, they are worrying about it. But then it's, yeah, most of the time not related with the tick for the doctor. So yeah.
So let's talk about that. Do you remember the first time you were bitten by a tick, and what was that experience like?
I can't remember because I was probably too small. I remember I had one in the back of my head, in my hair, that I was putting out, and I was like, what is this? And then we found out it was a tick, but also like, yeah, same story, no red circle. So yeah, no worries. So yeah. So
on all the different occasions when you were bitten by a tick, other than taking off the tick, was there any visits to doctors? Was there any type of intervention, or was just take it off and go back to engaging in your reckless biking and cycling activities?
Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Okay. So now let's talk about how your career progressed, and when you first started to feel your symptoms. So you had this vision of becoming a professional athlete. You were following in the trail that your brother had blazed. Your brother was having a lot of success in this industry, and you're following in that trail. And how is that going for you? You did foreshadow for us that you were having a lot of success at a very young person. So talk to us about those successes and how you went from being a bicyclist to a motocross athlete to ultimately having a great level of success at a very young age prior to getting sick.
So it's difficult to explain, but I only started to take it serious when I was 17, 18 years old, when I stopped school, because I was always running around with friends. And it was only at that time that I started to train physically, doing cycling, running, doing all these kind of things. And I was getting fit. And the first time I was getting fit in my life, I was feeling like, hey, maybe this can do something for me. And I was getting better, like race after race. I was feeling that, hey, if I train hard and I focus, I was not getting out too much, like not too much parties, and focus on what I did. It really helped me out. So then I had the vision to ride in European championships, but like I didn't had so much luck. I had really much broken bones, always on the wrong timing. So I always had to come back. I was a bad knee, so surgery, 4 months off, then a broken thumb, 6 months off, and so it was always something that went on that took me a bit out of it, and yeah, I had to let it go. When in 2016 I broke my neck. Since then also the Lyme disease started, and I got really much the feeling I did something wrong with my body, because of course I broke my neck. And also 2 years before, I broke my tailbone with 4 vertebrae. So I was feeling it was not right. And also there I probably got the Lyme.
So Axel, and I know our listeners are already cringing because they can see this train coming at them, while they're listening to your story, right? Because we have this kid who is, certainly following in the footsteps of his brothers, but there's a lot of recklessness going on here. I mean, you're certainly not exercising a way that serves you. You're rigorously exercising. You're riding on motocross, in motocross events at an international level. You're getting hurt on a regular basis, breaking bones, having surgeries. You're having all this go on. Oh, and by the way, you're being bitten by ticks on a pretty regular basis during your childhood, and all of this comes together, and you crash, right? And so first, talk to us about how your symptoms began to develop. Now, when you were thinking back, when did the symptoms begin to develop, and how were the early symptoms affecting you?
So to explain this quite simple, in 2014, my brother had a crash, and he went into a wheelchair. So I was a little bit done with the motocross side of things, because of course, when you see a brother in a wheelchair, this is mentally really tough. So I decided to go back to some mountain biking and cycling, because I needed some time off. But after 6 months, of course, I could not let the bike stand there. So I started to ride enduro again. So it's also like with motocross bike. And I started again to train a bit and to become a little bit better in this sport. And then September 2016, had a really bad crash, and I broke my neck. And I was laying there on the floor, and I was thinking, this is exactly the same like my brother. I will be paralyzed for the rest of my life, and it will be done with me. This is end of the story. But I was really lucky. I broke my neck. They could fix it with an operation. And normally I would not have too much damage afterwards. Problem was, of course, I had really much, I had nerve pain. So I had so many symptoms that I could not place. And always when I went to the doctor, it's because of your neck injury. You broke your neck, you need to take some time off. You have a big trauma, your hands are sleeping, it's normal. We take this day by day. So we will see what happens in the future. But after all these weeks, my symptoms got worse and worse and worse. because the time I had the crash, they had to give me lots of medications for the pain, because of course I had lots of pain. I have lots of headaches. I have lots of muscles who were really tensioned in my neck area. So my stomach lining was completely damaged. My trencha was completely damaged from the crash. So everything was really difficult at the time for the neck side of things. And I got my first anxiety and panic attack around 4 or 5 months after this crash. So I was thinking, yeah, it's maybe mentally that I'm drained. After 2 years after my brother's crash, I had my crash, and it's a big trauma mentally also for the family. Maybe you have the mental side of things are not right. And my doctor also said this, maybe you need to work on this. So I went to see for a psychologist. I went speaking with her 2 times a week. We found out that there were things inside me that, of course, were stressful, but why I had these panic attacks, why I was feeling more and more down, why I was feeling so no energy, pain, all the symptoms that now I know that were Lyme disease, but then I didn't. So yeah, there we had to start of course I was thinking it's the neck. I was not thinking about Lyme disease. I was thinking this is the neck injury that is making me sick. So I was thinking we have to get through this. I started riding bikes again, and I was feeling tired, but we have to keep going, because I had also my business that was running and that was going full gas. So I was still high performing. I was doing 12 hours days of work, and I went cycling 2 hours in the evening. So I was always on a high level for myself. I need to be focused, eat healthy, and keep doing what you're doing. But I was always getting more and more bad. And it was only in 2018 that I really crashed for the first time, that I could, every time I went training, I go worse. Normally, yeah, you train, you recover, and you can go longer 2 days after. And I was only getting worse. So from there on, we found, I did a lot of seeing doctors. And it was only in 2020 when we found out that I had Lyme disease. So it was a
let's pause there for a second.
4-year-long journey.
Yeah, so let's pause there before we get to your diagnosis. And when did you begin to suspect that your symptoms were not entirely related to the neck injury? Because your doctors are focusing on neck injury, and of course that makes perfect sense, because it's a horrific injury, and it could have been something that caused you to suffer from paraplegia. So yeah, it was a horrific accident. It was a horrific injury. But when did you start to think, my doctors are focusing too much on the neck injury, there's something else going on here?
It was about 2018 summer, so 2.5 years late, because I don't know how to explain this, but I was also thinking it was the neck, because of course, it was big and I had some troubles with it. But since the summer 2018, I was feeling symptoms that were totally not related with the neck.
How did you know that? How did you know that the symptoms were not related to the neck?
You have the tiredness, and I was looking it up. I was looking online, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're always doing things yourself. So I was not believing my doctor anymore. I was seeing another doctor and another one, and I started to get the white sheet of paper and write some things down, all my symptoms, all what it could be, and I had a list of 50 things that I need to check before I know what I had.
All right, so you turned your symptoms into a project, right? You are now writing down a project plan and defining the scope of the problems that you had, right? So that's the first thing that you did to help you now understand or tease out the symptoms that you would expect to feel from the neck injury versus the symptoms that may not be related to the neck injury. So that's the first step you took. The second thing it sounds like you did is you were pivoting from doctor to doctor. So talk to us about how you made the decision to go from one doctor to the next doctor when you were on the diagnostic phase of your journey.
At the time, I had a sports doctor, because I was doing the athlete side of things. And he was, he took some blood. We found out I had some strange values. Yeah, but this is probably related to the neck. you have low testosterone. That's probably because of the trauma. You have high values of another thing. So he was always looking for, okay, it's from the neck injury that we were thinking. And from there we started. Then I got really bad stomach problems. Okay, so we go to look in the stomach. Then we go to look in the gut. So we did a lot of testing and sugar tests, all this kind of stuff to find out, where the problem was. And every time we saw something was wrong, but we could not put the finger on the wound, like, this is it.
So Axel, one of the advantages that athletes have when they're about to go through a Lyme disease journey is that they understand the importance of teams and coaching, right? We interviewed a former professional skier named Athena Brownstone, or Athena Sophocles, and what she told us was, because she was a professional athlete and because she always had coaches and she always had coaching, she understood the value of building teams, and she then built a team to help her through this challenge. So did you have that same experience as a professional athlete where you really valued coaching and you really valued building teams? And did that help you now on this phase of your journey?
That's exactly what I did as well. So with writing everything down on a paper, I got to my doctor and I said, listen, I want a second opinion, because I'm listening to you and I'm seeing other doctors, but I want a second opinion. So I'm going to another doctor and let him overview everything I write down. So I went to another doctor that I know from a friend, and I explained everything to him, and he said, the good thing is we can start again from a new sheet of paper. We write everything down again, and we can look at the things you already test, but we can test some other stuff. So he was like, he heard my story from another side, because the other doctor knew me for already 10 years. So he was more into, of course, it's the trauma, it's the neck, it's all these kind of things that came together. And the other doctor was more, I was fresh, I was new for him. So he could look at another side of the paper. And then at that time I built a team around myself. I got the physio, my doctor, my nutrition coach. I got everyone together. Like, okay, we have these symptoms. What can it be? Can it be related? What's your idea about it? My parents, of course, because also the financial side of things wasn't interesting. So we got all these people together, and I was the one making the decision what we are going to do, because I was still fresh enough in my head at the time to decide what I had to do. And yeah, it was a 2-year journey, finding out which direction to go.
Oh, so Axel, so give us again in some specific detail, who's on your team. So you had your first doctor who you had worked with for 10 years. You then hired a second medical doctor who was now looking at your symptoms from a fresh perspective and essentially became a check and balance on the first doctor. You said you also made sure that your parents were a part of your team because you were cognizant of the importance of having financial support. You had a nutritionist, a physical therapist. Anybody else on the team that you were working with? You said you were also working with a psychologist or psychiatrist prior to this. Did that professional stay on your team as well?
Yeah, she was, of course, in my team, because she discussed all this kind of mental problems with my doctors as well, to see where the problem could be. And also, and you can't forget this, 2 of my best friends, because they know me really, really well. And I discussed everything with them before I made decisions, because they know me, they know how I am, they know what I do, what I decide. So I put them in my team as well.
Okay, now let's talk about the importance of that social support, because unfortunately Lyme disease is a very isolating disease, and in many cases people find themselves with no one. But you very intentionally invited people to be a part of this team, including your friends, because you wanted to have a touchstone so that you could, I guess, have some feedback on whether or not your thoughts were accurate or not, right? So talk to us about how you made sure that you weren't isolated and how you invited people to be on the team and allowed them to give you input so that you could get to a good outcome.
The first time I started to feel the anxiety and the panic attacks, it was really lonely. And one of my friends was with me when I had a really bad panic attack. And he said, "Oof, this is really sketchy and not so nice to watch." And it was like, I'm always here to help. You can always call me. And I was like, yeah, but sometimes I know I'm not so fresh in the head, but I can't explain it to anyone. I cannot speak. I cannot. And I was always speaking. Like now, I'm always speaking. I'm a very social guy. So and I was not speaking. I was just silent, and I had so much brain fog at the time that I could not think. I could not communicate. It was really difficult. And to get these guys in my team, it was more easy for me because they could see immediately on my face in which state I was to make a decision, yes or no. Can he make a clear decision, or is he too much in the brain fog side of things? And yeah, if they ask me to go for dinner, then and I said no, they understand. So yeah, they took me on the good route.
So now you built your team, but you're still focusing on the trauma related to the neck. How did you and your team ultimately pivot away from the trauma and the injury that you suffered in the motocross accident and finally begin to focus on other things that allowed you to finally get to your Lyme disease diagnosis?
So what my my new doctor did was he looked at me like a project. He said, okay, we're gonna find out what's wrong. And he let me do a physical test because he thought I was overtrained because I did lots of physical training. I was training 16 to 20 hours a week, cycling, running, all these kind of things. And he was like, maybe you are overtrained, you did too much. And there is a syndrome called overtraining syndrome, that if you do too much for a too long time, your body will fight itself. So I did the test in a special university. And it's a cycling test, like to build up some, I'm sorry, I can't come up with the name now. Also the Lyme brain. What's lactate? Well,
lactic acid.
Lactic acid in English, yeah. And before I was doing this test, I was pretty good at it because I was fit. And now I did the lactic acid test. And around what normally is my point where I get the lactic acid, I was already fully done. And they took all the blood samples, and then I had to wait for 3 hours and do another test to see how my body was responding to this activity. And I got off the bike the first time, and I had to rest for 3 hours on a chair in the hallway. And they found me before my second test. I was sleeping on the chair, fully sweating. And I was just sleeping, and the guy came to me and was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I'm not fine, but okay, we do the second test, so I know what's wrong." And I started pedaling, and it's just 80 watts. That means your legs are just going around on the bike. It's just really easy. And my legs were going around, and I could feel myself drain. I could feel I was almost peeing my pants. I could not hold it any longer. I was just completely drained, and they took my heart rate, and it was 160, and I was just making my legs go around, not putting any pressure. So I was feeling, okay, this is not well. They put a little bit more effort into the test, and 3 minutes later I had to stop. I was throwing up. I was feeling really sick. So what they see is normally your values after exercise, they go up, like cortisol, all your hormones, everything is changing to recover. And they see that all my ashes, they were just like straight lined. There was nothing happening. Nothing was happening. So every time I did an exercise, I was going worse. So they immediately gave me cortisone because they were like, this needs to change. And of course, after 4 days, I was flying. You cannot believe it. They gave me the cortisone, and after 4 days, I could work 12 hours a day again. I could exercise. I had a private gym. I was in the gym. Everything was flying. Everything was going like I wanted to. Yeah, until 3 months after.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that for a second. So they were trying to define whether or not you were overtrained. They had come to the conclusion that you were overtrained, right? Now, did they talk to you at the time that they had come to the conclusion that you were suffering from overtraining syndrome, that would have an impact on your immune system?
Yeah, so they said, probably from the trauma in your neck, there is something as I can also not remember the name now. There is something of a little piece that's regulating your hormones and stuff. And they said the spinal gland, I think is the name, and it's regulating all your hormones. This can be damaged from the neck injury, and that's why you have now all this overtraining syndrome. So when you take the cortisol, it will help you. That's what they said.
Okay, so they're still focusing on the neck as the basis of the hormonal dysregulation. At any time, was there a conversation about the possibility that the hormonal dysregulation was caused by something else other than the neck injury?
No.
Okay, so you have all of these classic symptoms starting to unfold for you and your team. You're going for high level testing, but everybody's still coming back to the neck, right? That, you know, because a lot of the hormonal dysregulation, of course, is an indicia of Lyme disease, and we understand. We'll talk more about this, the HPA axis and the impact that Lyme disease has on that type of hormonal dysregulation, and the impact that it will have on your cortisol levels, right? But they're still coming to the conclusion, hey, it's the neck injury. So how does this again develop where you're moving closer to your Lyme disease diagnosis? Because it sounds so far, everybody just keeps coming back to the neck.
Yeah. So yeah, after I got these pills, I was feeling really well, and I could start doing some exercises again. So mentally, I was feeling much more better, because training was always a getaway for me to release stress. And I was doing some training again. I was riding with my bike a little bit, and yeah, it was only when I really collapsed that we had to do everything again, and that's when they found out I had Lyme disease.
Okay, so another thing that's kind of interesting to me, Axel, is that, you know, we talk on this podcast about the gym culture, right? And whether or not exercise is going to serve us or it's going to hurt us, right? And we sometimes talk about this inverted U, where, you know, you're exercising and you're getting benefit, and then you're exercising and you stop getting a benefit, but it's not hurting you. But then you over exercise and now it starts to hurt you, right? You go through that inverted U scenario, right? You were overtraining. You were training to be a professional athlete. You were training so that you could protect your body from the rigors of riding in motocross and suffering all these serious injuries that your brother and you and everybody else in that industry are suffering, right? You take a test, and when you take the test, what your doctors tell you is that, hey, you're suffering from overtraining syndrome, right? They give you cortisol, you go back to training again, right? And you're training at a high level. So did anyone suggest to you that perhaps it was the training that you were doing before you suffered the injury that put you into the syndrome, that ultimately made you vulnerable to both injury and then some other things? Or did they not say anything to you and you thought, hey, going back to training is a good thing?
Exactly. I was thinking like, okay, we have a solution, so we can go back to full gas, and in 2 years I will be flying again. That's what I was thinking. Of course, this was also, I wanted to think this, and that's also dangerous. I was like, okay, finally I have a stamp, like, okay, I have a solution, so we can go back to what I want to achieve, business-wise, sports, everything. So yeah, it was easy for me to decide, okay, let's go full gas again. But of course, this was really, really fast again in the trash can.
Right. So in your head, it was, hey, all right, I suffered this neck injury. I have some hormonal dysregulation. They'll give me hormone replacement therapy. I go back to being better again. I could do all the things I was doing again, right? And you go back to doing all the things you were doing again. And of course, what does it do? It causes you to suffer further immune disruption, further, and now you have a crash.
Yeah. So yeah, I was feeling well and so on. So I decided to go on a 2-week trip with my girlfriend at the time to ride some motocross bikes in Spain and pass by Andorra to have some skiing. And yeah, you know, I was always all in. So I was on the ski slope on the second day, and the first day I was a little bit had some air hunger and I was not feeling well. But at the time I had always anxiety, and it was normal to me. So I was standing on the ski slope, and I was not feeling well, and I was just like, yeah, it will be fine. Tomorrow it will be a better day. So I went sleeping, woke up in the morning, and I was like, what is this with my body? I need to get through it. I took double the dose of what I could normally take of the cortisol, so my body was on fire. And I was on the ski slope, and suddenly it was done.
You crashed.
And yeah, fully. I did not remember like half a day. my girlfriend like put me on the bed in the room, and yeah, she was really scared of what was happening because I was shaking and I could not eat. I was not thinking. Everything was completely vanished. Everything before what happened was vanished. And yeah, I called my parents. I called a friend and I said, "You fly to here. I take first flight home, and we're gonna do all the tests again. We're gonna look for what I had, because I was so scared that I was going to die. I had heart palpitations. My heart was going full gas. I could not breathe. I was thinking literally I was going to die. So that was really scary. So I took the next flight home the day after, and we did all the testing again.
So Axel, it sounds like you had a seizure in that moment, and all of what you just outlined sound like classic seizure symptoms. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
So now you're back at square one, right? You had gone through this journey with your team. You had come to the conclusion collectively that you were suffering from hormone dysregulation as a result of the neck injury. You supplement with hormones, and you now find yourself worse off than you ever had been before. You have a seizure. At that time, are you now believing and discussing with your team that there's something else going on here, and it's time for us to look past this neck injury and look somewhere else?
People, actually, it was. I was so desperate at the time, and nobody could understand me, that I just put a post out on Instagram story. Listen, I don't know what I had. If someone please understand me, if someone please could tell me or send me to another doctor. I don't care what the costs are. I don't care where I have to travel to. I need to know what I have, because like this, I cannot function. I was in my bedroom like for 3 weeks. I could not really wake up. I was so tired. I could not do anything. And I was so scared of this that I had to reach out to all the people I know. And I had a bit of luck that I had a friend who had Lyme disease, who got to me through Instagram and said, "Hey, Axel, please visit this doctor. He's very special, but please visit him. Maybe he can be helpful."
Okay, so let's pause there for a second and build that out, Axel. So you had this team of people who you were working with, your parents, your physical therapist, your nutritionist, your doctors, your psychotherapist. You had this whole team of people. And now you said, hey, I have to expand this team. I have to crowdsource my symptoms because we on our team are not successfully diagnosing this. I want to expand to the larger community. And it really gives us now the bright side of social media. We always focus on the dark side of social media. And as you know from our podcast conversation, I'm not a big fan of social media, or I certainly wasn't before I started working with Tick Bootcamp. But you now use this tool effectively, and you said, hey, I'm sick. These are my symptoms. What do you folks think? And someone comes back to you and says, you may have Lyme disease. So yeah, what were you thinking about Lyme disease? Did you know anything about it? Did you think it was possible? What did this responsive post tell you that led you to believe that this was a possibility?
I know about Lyme disease because the friend was actually in my friend group of like close 20 people, and but I had really much different symptoms than him. Only the fatigue was a bit the same, but it was really difficult to reach out because I already had 2 times a Lyme test before, because my doctors were looking also after a lot of things, and they were like, okay, you can have the kissing disease, you can have all kinds of things, but yeah, maybe Lyme. But they were doing a standard Lyme test, and of course nothing comes out when you have for already so many years Lyme disease.
Oh, so Lyme was on the radar while you were going through this diagnostic journey, even though you were largely focusing on the neck, where everybody was coming back to the neck injury. You had tested for Lyme disease twice. Talk to us about the first 2 Lyme disease tests that you had taken and what the doctors were saying to you about why they were testing you for Lyme disease.
Because I had the fatigue, they were looking at, yeah, maybe it's Lyme disease, because they know something about it, but not so much. So we're gonna test the whole panel of what you can test for diseases that make you tired. So they test me on the whole panel, and yeah, nothing comes out. So you're not Borrelia positive. That's what the answer was. Okay, so no stress, no Lyme, will be something else.
Okay. Now you shared with us earlier that your parents had revealed to you that you had been bitten by ticks several times during your childhood that you didn't recall. When did your parents first begin to share with you that these tick bites were a part of your childhood? And were you taking that into account, or your team of project, you as the project manager, were your team focusing on that?
So what I did, quite the same day, I took again a white piece of paper, and I made a timeline of my life with everything that happened, all my broken bones, all my emotional damage, all my physical damage, where I had some big races or whatever, all these kind of things. And I broke a timeline, and I said, of course, the neck injuries in there and all these kind of things. But I was like, the timeline of the last year is totally different. There is something else going on. I need to look further into this. And I asked my parents, like, what you think is, can it be Lyme disease? Because I never had the red circle on my arm or on my head. Yeah, maybe. So we test again.
Okay, so now you go to this new doctor, right? Your friend who had Lyme disease recommended that you go to a Lyme literate medical doctor. If you're comfortable with sharing the name of the doctor that you went to, please do that, and tell us what the experience was like when you went to the Lyme literate medical doctor.
So he texted me his number. Please call him. Explain you're a friend of mine, and then he will explain to you what kind of tests you have to do. So of course I made an appointment. I got there, and I was, at that time, just Corona started. So it was really difficult to get in. And people were not wearing the mouth mask at the time because we didn't know what Corona was. And it was just the first week that it happened in Belgium. So I went in and I spoke with the people in the waiting area, and I had to wait for 2 hours because the doctor is really well known in Belgium. And I spoke with the people, and I started to cry before I went in, because all the people that were there had the same story like me. And I felt like I'm on the place where I have to be. I went in, doctor tested me, I explained everything. He took all the tests, blood work, everything. And he said, Axel, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but I'm 99% sure that you have chronic Lyme disease, because it's a Lyme literate doctor. And I said, okay, no problem. Let's see what we can do. And 1 month later, I had to go back, got all the results, and it was like, yeah, Miyamotoi. So that was it.
Axel, a few follow-ups on this, because there's a couple of things I want to discuss with you. The first is your doctor that diagnosed you. This doctor referred to you by your friend from Instagram was an ILADS doctor, right? The International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society. Now,
yes,
ILADS doctors specialize obviously in Lyme disease and treating Lyme disease, that's chronic Lyme and late-stage Lyme. There's been a lot of controversy, especially lately in the last week in the news. We're constantly getting emails and alerts about Lyme disease, where the debate over chronic Lyme is intensifying between ILADS doctors and some other doctors. So although the CDC and the federal government in the United States, and I think the world now recognizes what they call post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, which is what we call chronic Lyme essentially, they're arguing whether or not it's really persistent infection or a persistent, Borrelia, in your case, Miyamotoi infection, or if some sort of immune dysfunction as a result of Lyme disease or something else altogether, right? So I wonder if the strong opinions that are out there, I have an article up in front of me right now, why doctors can't agree about chronic Lyme disease. And there are some really strong-minded doctors who are saying, yes, some people don't get better after Lyme disease. However, it's not due to infection anymore. So do you think these views just complicated your diagnosis and prolonged your diagnosis because it wasn't something that was widely accepted about this severity of illness due to Lyme disease?
Yeah. When I spoke with some people about Lyme disease, they were like, yeah, you can be sick of it for 1 month, and of course, then you're fixed. And if you have some symptoms afterwards, it will probably be something else. It was not something like, okay, you can have chronic Lyme and you can be really sick for a very long time. So it was only when I saw my first time my Lyme doctor that I found out it could be in your system for the rest of your life, and could damage a lot of organs. Yeah, so I think it's in Belgium as well. It's really difficult to explain this to a lot of people because we have the wrong literature about it. There is like one side is saying chronic Lyme is true. There are people that are really sick and it's because of the Lyme disease, and the other side is saying no, this is just doctors that want to gain money on side of people with Lyme.
And I think what compounds this problem, and you experienced this in your journey as well, this article, Why Doctors Can't Agree About Chronic Lyme Disease, references a study that a doctor performed in a patient chronic Lyme patients. And I think it was something like 71% of the participants in the study did not test positive for Lyme disease. And therefore, the doctor said, people think they have chronic Lyme, they don't have a persistent infection, and it's not Lyme disease. And you got tested twice before you finally got your positive diagnosis. So I think that the inadequate or poor testing also confuses people and results in a lot of confusion about, well, can you have Lyme disease if you tested negative twice? Or can you still have an active infection after treatment if you're testing negative? But we know now that these tests aren't very accurate. So I think that played a role in your journey as well, which prolonged and delayed your diagnosis ultimately by an ILADS doctor. Do you agree?
100%.
So another interesting point of discussion that you and Rich had was this whole, you were exercising and you would just crash. You could not do anything without having this crash, fall asleep, and just really be triggered with your symptoms. But the cortisol really helped you temporarily before your diagnosis, right? And I think cortisol is a double-edged sword. And I want to get your opinion on this as an athlete and as somebody who has used it, because we know cortisol helps you repair tissue. It helps you recover from exercise. It's something that naturally happens in people in a normal way. But when you're sick with Lyme disease, many of us are stuck in fight or flight. Our nervous systems become dysregulated, which results in anxiety and stress and high levels of stress. Constant anxiety all the time when you got sick. But we do know that cortisol, it curbs the functions that would be non-essential or harmful in a fight or flight situation. So it's almost like cortisol encourages fight or flight and adds to your stress level. But on the other hand, it allowed you to exercise, which gives you endorphins to counter that, right? So that's where I see like this sort of there's this competitive advantage for cortisol, where in one way it's helping you recover from exercise and helping you get the happy chemicals from exercise, but it's also pushing you more into a state of fight or flight. So what are your views on cortisol and how you used it, and if it was helpful or harmful in your journey?
It was very helpful at the energy side of things, because the moment I started taking it, I was feeling much more energetic and I could perform again business-wise, and yeah, could do some sports again. But my button was always on, so I could my sleeping was not so well. But I was thinking, yeah, maybe this is a solution, and I can fight back from where I come from, and I can go back to the normal level of energy. But of course, yeah, my button was always on and never off. And yeah, it was only off when I stopped taking it.
So it allowed you to have a better quality of life and improve your symptoms, but behind the scenes, it was wreaking havoc by leaving your button always on, and your stress level was through the roof, which probably led to your crash that you had on vacation with your girlfriend later on, it sounds like, in my opinion. I mean, is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, also agree with that 100%.
So talk to us about Borrelia Miyamotoi, because we know that, not to get too technical for our listeners, but Borrelia burgdorferi is what we generally associate as being Lyme disease, right? Especially here in the United States. And Borrelia Miyamotoi is a different strain of Lyme disease. So it's something that's different, just to kind of share with our listeners, we know that was really only discovered 20 years ago in Japan, and that right now that the standard test for Lyme disease will not detect it. So if you didn't go to an ILADS doctor and you continue to see your other doctors, do you think you ever would have tested positive for Lyme disease? Because likely those standard Lyme tests you were getting in your initial set of doctors weren't even looking for Borrelia Miyamotoi, because they don't test for that, right? So that's a whole nother thing that people don't even think about.
True. The first time I went to my special Lyme doctor, he tested me on all these kind of different strains, and also on biomarkers that could tell me that I was running around with chronic disease. It was the first one who told me about CK values of CD75, all these kind of things. And I went to look it up. I did some Google work. I bought me all these kind of Lyme books. And because it was only then that I knew that I had probably Lyme disease. and I did all my reading and my looking it up in the month prior to seeing the doctor for the second time when I got my diagnosis. And yeah, I was seeing on the paper, he put the paper in front of me, positive Miyamotoi and all these kind of biomarkers, and I immediately accepted and understood what I was dealing with.
At times, you couldn't even communicate, you said, right? Your brain didn't work, you had brain fog, and you had to rely on your friends to help you. But yet, despite that, when you had moments of clarity, you were researching, you were learning about the disease, so you can make informed decisions as a patient based on the results you were getting from your blood work, based on how you were feeling to partner with your doctors. And that was a really, really powerful Lyme hack that I know Rich and I still both remember because it was a really important Lyme hack. So do you think that if it weren't for all of your research and reading these books and understanding this disease at a deep level, that you would be where you are now with your health?
I looked at myself as a patient that I would treat if I was a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I was thinking, of course, when I know everything about it, when I read all the books, when I see all the videos, when I know all about it, how all these markers are working, because I was also working with food, I could think more biochemically, a little bit more than a regular person. So, and then I just put a piece of paper. If I was the patient, if I was a doctor and you were my patient and it was me, what would you do? And I looked at it that way, and that was much more easy for me.
So you are now just getting your diagnosis of Borrelia Miyamotoi. You just had your really bad crash on your skiing trip with your girlfriend, and you have your diagnosis. So what are your next steps with your now new Lyme literate ILADS doctor?
So he put me, of course, on the standard IV protocol. I had 3 different kind of antibiotics together with the whole protocol of supplements. And it was the first time I experienced the Herxheimer reaction 3 weeks in. We did this for 6 weeks, and then it would be followed by a disulfiram protocol. And I thought back in the day, because I knew a bit about Lyme disease, that I would be healed after these protocols, but this wasn't true.
And walk us through how you felt at the end of that 6-week window. You know, were you feeling any better, or were you even worse because of the Herxheimer reactions that you described?
It was the worst I was ever been.
So you felt the worst you ever were at the end of that 6 weeks with the antibiotic cocktail?
Yeah.
Now, what was your Lyme literate ILADS doctor telling you? Was he saying that this is normal because you have to feel worse before you feel better?
Yeah, it was the first time that I went to him. It was in 3 weeks of the treatment, so we had to do it 6 weeks. After 3 weeks, I was going to see him to explain how I was feeling. And I said to him, like, I'm feeling really shit. And he explained, you have Herxheimer reactions, your body needs to go through the breakdown system to get all these toxins out of your body. Then I knew that it was a possibility because I did all the studying. But of course, it was so tough to bury it. I was like, okay, we gotta go through it. And after these 6 weeks, I was swollen. I think I was 10 kilos more heavy because my liver was fully fattened, and I was really, really, really tough time. My body was fully swollen. And he gave me some 2 weeks of recovery. He was like, okay, now you need to recover for 2 weeks. We give you all the supplements to take the toxins out.
So Axel, did you take a break at the end of the 6 weeks or in the middle of the 6 weeks?
At the end, because I knew I was getting more sick, but this would help me eventually to become healthy again. So I was fully focused, even though I'm really sick. I gotta go through this. This can take me 2 weeks. This can take me 2 months, but I gotta go through it to become healthy again.
And when you did go off the 6 weeks of treatment and you started the detox regimen, you said you developed a fatty liver, that you were swollen, and that you had all these toxins in you from the die-off, right, in the Herx. Do you recall what these supplements were and what you were using to help detox your body and flush these toxins out?
I was using curcumin, lactoferrin. Yeah, I was using curcumin, choline, lactoferrin, probiotics, Meyers Cocktails, glutathione, ozone therapy as well. Yeah, celery juice, all these kind of things.
Was there any one in particular that you felt was extremely helpful for you personally in feeling better from this, detoxification process and removing these toxins? So, for example, was the glutathione really helpful where you felt better pretty quickly, or was there anything like that that you can share with our audience?
The Meyers cocktail with glutathione, because I was having a lot of muscle pain. The magnesium was helping me in this from the Meyers cocktail and the detoxification. Together with infrared saunas, I still do them 4 times a week because this really I could really feel the toxins flushing out when I do this. This is really helpful for me.
Any tips for our listeners that want to do an infrared sauna? Because a lot of people are heat intolerant and are afraid to do it. A lot of people don't know that they need to, stay hydrated afterwards, and they can feel worse because of that. And also, there is such a thing as going too hard in a sauna as well. So any recommendations or advice based on your experience to share with our listeners pertaining to a sauna?
Of course, you have to be hydrated before you start, and you also have to take binders because all the toxins that come out of your body need to flush out. So I always took some binders before I went in, and when I went out as well. So I had always flushing out all these toxins. And always, for me, sometimes I have to go lower with the temperature than I want because now I'm always in high temperature because I feel fit again. But I was in the start, I was not even sweating. It was just a bit the heat, and I was building it up slowly. And this is also what I learned during my Lyme journey, that everything what you do, supplements, always start slowly and feel how your body is responding to this.
I think it's a really powerful tip to start slowly and work your way up. And you said you weren't even sweating at first. You were just doing it with minimal heat and for a short period of time, and you worked up to being able to sweat in a higher temperature, correct?
I was coming from doing nothing, laying in my bed. If I go now 30 minutes in the sauna at a very high heat, it would wreck my body. So, but if I would do nothing, I would stay the same. So I have to do something. And I started with the 500-meter walk, with a 10-minute sauna. It was almost cold, so I started very slowly, and I was thinking, okay, if I don't feel worse tomorrow because I can fall back, then I'll do it a little bit more. And that's the way I started building up.
Axel, do you recall what binders you were using before going into the sauna?
Chlorella, and now I take the bioactive binder as well with charcoal.
Did you have any reactions or responses to bioactive binders or charcoal? Kind of some people, prefer one over the other or have some sort of response. Like Rich, for example, can't take chlorella because it just really messes up his stomach. So were they affecting you in any way, or were both those binders pretty gentle for you?
No, pretty gentle. Everything was for binders I can take. My gut health was also really good after my treatments, because normally with antibiotics and so on, the gut health is really difficult. But I was always looking into my food, and I was eating really clean to see my gut was healing well. And my gut is in a very good state, I would say, even though I have the chronic Lyme. So yeah, I can take a lot of pills without feeling really sick.
So you mentioned that you do a short walk, Axel. So you'd walk around shortly just to do a little bit, not be stuck in bed and bedbound, and see how you feel the next day. How did you start to progressively increase your movement and your exercise so you can do more and more and more? What was that approach and what was that strategy in comparison to how you were exercising before?
That was really difficult for me because I always, when I was more on the athlete side, I was always monitoring myself. I was measuring my heart rate, looking how much time I was on the cycle. I was cycling. And now I was the first time I put my cycling shorts on, and I went on the gym bike, and I was on 3 minutes, and I was feeling miserable. And I was like, okay, I go for 5 minutes. And after 4 minutes, I had to stop because I was throwing up. And I was like, it's bad to take to look at the time, how much time I'm cycling. Just go with the flow, feel what you can do. And the day after, I went on again without the clock. And I was on for much more long, because I put the clock on, but not inside the room. And I was feeling, hey, maybe I have to let all these things go, not measure my heart rate, just go what feels right, and we'll see where we go. And after a while, I was cycling for 30 minutes without feeling shitty. And I was like, hey, let's start monitoring again. And the day I started monitoring again, I was feeling more shit, because I was monitoring myself, and I was looking at my heart rate, and I was like, shit, I'm in bad shape. and I was getting more stressed, and I was like, I have to pedal a little bit harder, and I was getting more and more stress on my body, and I was feeling more sick. So I throw everything out, and I was just going with the flow. And since I started doing that, also business-wise, everything started to go much more how I wanted, because my body is telling me what I can and what I can't. And the moment I start listening to it and acting to that, not saying, okay, I have to be a bit more tough, then I will always, the next day, will be sick. So I have to listen to what my body is telling me. And that's, with that state of mind, I took that for about a year. I decided to, whatever people say, whatever people think, I was going to do what I was feeling that I can do. And I was, if I have to go to the restaurant in the evening and it was not possible, I just said no, because my body was telling me it's no. Sometimes my body was telling me you can go out and you can go party until 3 a.m. if it would be possible. But it was telling me all these signals, and I was listening to it. And since I started doing that, knowing with all that I know from Lyme disease, I became healthy again.
So Axel, I think it's a really important point that you just described, that you shouldn't be letting a time clock tell you what to do or people in your life tell you what to do, but rather listen to your body and let your body guide how far you push yourself on a given day, right? So by not having that stress of people influencing you or a time clock influencing you, you're not getting let down, you're not getting frustrated, and you're not putting emotional stress on your body, which is going to hinder your healing. So that's a really good piece of advice there. So Axel, walk us through now, after this whole detox period is done, you mentioned after that you were going to use disulfiram, right? And disulfiram, we know, is a pretty powerful treatment, but also has some risks like neuropathy and other things like that, and also some psychological side effects. So walk us through your experience about starting disulfiram and how it worked for you.
I started very low. It was 12.5 milligrams in the morning, 12.5 in the evening. And then I built up to 25, and I would always double it until I was on 250 milligrams a day. That was a strategy. And at 50 milligrams in the morning and in the evening, I started to get some Herxheimer reactions. And my doctor explained to me that if the moment you feel your Herxheimer will come, stop immediately, let it happen, let be sick for 3 or 4 days, feel a bit better, and then start again slowly. So we would not get the strategy to always build up and feel more sick. We were the strategy like, okay, I still have my business to run because I was still working full time. And I have to feel like which is the level I can keep going. And so I was on 50 milligrams, and I got one time a really bad Herx. So I stopped for 2 weeks. I got a lot of detoxing, and I built it up again. And I was too motivated, I think, and I went to 57, and immediately I was really sick. For about 3 weeks, I had so much brain fog and so much die off. The Herx was so bad that I had to stop everything. Also, I could not even put my socks on. I was really 3 weeks again, fully bedridden. And I was also scared again from the disulfiram. So yeah, we discussed to stop this treatment.
Axel, looking back, do you feel that disulfiram was something you wish you didn't do, or are there any positive effects of using disulfiram?
I believe every time you feel sick from a new treatment, it helped, because every time the treatment makes you sick, you have a die-off. So I believe all the different treatments took away a Lyme in very different spots. I believe the disulfiram helped me with my neurological problems, because I was really having neurological problems during it. And afterwards, I was feeling much more better neurologically. So I believe it helped me.
So when you stopped the disulfiram, Axel, you actually were feeling better, neurologically speaking, with brain fog and some of your neurological symptoms. Yeah, true. So we decided to go, okay, first we do the detoxing again, and then we're going to start with the samento, banderol, cumana protocol. And I got exactly the same response on this. I immediately had really bad days. So I took it really slow. I took 1 drop of each, 1 day off, 2 drops of each, 1 day off, or a bad day, 3 days off, to start again. So until I was on 20 drops of everything, and I got again a really bad Herx. So I stopped with that as well.
But I was always, during these treatments, I was always looking at my detoxification, that it was on point. But of course, when you have so much buildup, I was feeling this in my face. My face was swollen. My eyes were a bit fluffy. Then I knew I have to, like, I was going to a point, but my athlete brain was like, you have to keep going. You have to focus. The more you take, the better you will become in the future.
So despite feeling so poorly and badly from these treatments, you knew because you were herxing, it was having a positive impact. So let's talk about samento and banderol. They're NutraMedix, right? It's a NutraMedix brand. And samento is really a version of cat's claw. And cat's claw is an herb that's really effective at killing Lyme bacteria and a lot of other microbes in your body. And the banderol, on the other hand, is used for inflammation support to help you with the detoxification and the Herxheimer reaction. So they sort of complement each other pretty well. Did you find that the banderol was helping you with inflammation and herxing, or that the samento was just so aggressive that you weren't seeing the decreased inflammation and herxing through the banderol?
It was too aggressive for me. The inflammation was still on a pretty high level, but yeah, it was too heavy for me. So I had to stop this after a while.
And about how long, Axel, were you on the samento and banderol for?
I would say 3 months.
3 months. Okay. And give us time context. So where are we now? So today, obviously, you are 28 years old. You got diagnosed when you were 26. When you went off the samento and banderol, was this, last year, 6 months ago? Where were we time-wise?
This is about 1 year ago.
Okay.
It's about today. We are. I don't know when you're gonna put this out, but exactly 1 year ago today, I got a message on my Facebook. I started a trip to Portugal to have some time off, and yeah, since then I'm feeling much more better.
So let's talk about that, because this is right after samento and banderol. You said you got a Facebook message and then you took some time off. So what was this Facebook message? Let's talk about that.
So I was feeling pretty okay, but I was not fully healed, and I was like, maybe I need to do something else work-wise as well. Maybe I need to think about my life, what I want, because this disease will be forever in my body. This will forever have an impact on my life. I know this for 100% sure. I cannot be an athlete anymore, but I can do sports on a high level, but not the way I thought it would ever be. I can do business, but I cannot work 80 hours a week, because then I will be very sick again in the future. So I had to rethink the whole life. Do I want children? Do I want children? I need to rethink everything. So I loaded up my van and I went on a road trip. And the plan was to go 3 weeks. And yeah, we were almost 9 months that I was not at home. So yeah.
So you were living in Belgium, and because I'm not too familiar with the geography there. So you left Belgium, and where did you go? Give us some context.
I went a bit south for the good weather, because yeah, that was always helpful. And I wanted to ride my bike again, because in my whole timeline, I know when I'm riding my bike, I'm the most happy person in the world. So I took my father's Dakar bike. I put it in the bus. I was like, okay, we're gonna start riding again. And I went to ride 30 minutes. I came home. I had fully headache. I could not. I was 2 days in the bed, but I was so happy. And yeah, I was feeling really well. So okay, let's go for an hour. Okay, 2 days off. Let's go for 2 hours. And after 3 months, I was riding again 6 hours a day. Of course, with some days off in between, but I was so happy, and I knew I wanted to go back to racing cars or bikes, as long as it has an engine and some noise, that it would make me happy. Because when I have high adrenaline, I'm happy. And yeah, since then I'm back in competition, just amateur-wise, but yeah, it's going, so I'm happy.
So Axel, let's talk about that. It sounds like you were really, again, reading your body, right? Doing what you can do and gradually building up over a 9-month period that you started a year ago when you did this move south. So, but I think an important part of what you just described was you were taking days off after going through an aggressive riding day. And we've learned from some of the leading Lyme doctors, like local Dr. Bioscano here back in the 70s, who was treating chronic Lyme cases. He told us in chronic Lyme disease, you cannot go aggressively or even training training moderately and do it every day because of the way Lyme disease interacts in the body. You have to take days off. And his recommendation was exactly what you said. Do a day of exercise, take 2 days off. Exercise, take 2 days off. So do you think that your body was just giving you the signals that is backed by the science and Lyme literate doctors that is needed in order to be able to get over the hump of Lyme disease and be able to make progress in improving your exercise regimen?
Yeah, I could read my body really well. When I wake up in the morning and I have some pains here and there, I know maybe today will be not the day. And then I do some small exercises. I do 10 sit-ups. And if I'm out of breath, I know today is not the day. Today we're gonna rest. And if I do 10 sit-ups and I'm like, nah, I drink a coffee and we go. Then I know it's just a little hiccup along the way, but it will be fine. And like this, I read my body and I know what I can do.
Were you doing, or are you doing any treatments now that you took this trip down south? You're relaxing, you're starting to build up your riding, career again. Are you doing anything to treat beyond just building up, a clean diet, good sleep, building your exercise up moderately? Were you on any sort of herbs or pharmaceuticals to help with the Lyme disease during this time?
I was mainly focused on getting the toxins out, because also exercising is building up toxins in your body. The lactic acid needs to go out. So I was doing a lot of ice baths. So I was with a friend there, and we went almost every evening in the sauna. We took some ice baths. I was focusing on proper hydration. This means with magnesium, with all these kind of things that my body would not drain itself. I was focusing on very clean food, glutathione and some binders, fully on the toxins, because my sweat was, I knew my body is still full, and now it's much more less. Like I had the iron taste on my tongue. My sweat was smelling like chemical stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna take everything natural. I start drinking less shitty sodas. I was just drinking water. I was just nourishing my body like I knew. I was listening to it like I knew this is what I have to give it, and I was listening to it, and since then I'm much more better.
So we talked about the role of the sauna, but you mentioned ice baths as well. So Axel, talk to us about the role ice baths played, because they're sort of the opposite of a sauna, right? And what value that had in helping you in your recovery.
I feel the sauna is relaxing my muscles and getting the toxins out, but I feel the cold therapy is getting my body moving. With the shock it gives, with the cold, your body is not used to this. In the heat, when it's sunny, everybody takes his shirt off and he's relaxing. But when it's cold, everybody goes inside the house and they put a jacket on. Everybody's running away from it. And what it does for a boost of not confidence, because I'm confident enough, I think, but the feeling like, hey, it's like a shot of adrenaline that they give me, and it makes me happy and it makes me feel good. So I keep doing it.
So this was a year ago you moved and you started this whole new process, and you said that it was about a 9-month window, which brings us to about 3 months ago. So did something change 3 months ago, or are you still on this trajectory of just building everything up and taking it easy, and you're still in the same current location that you were in when you traveled down south?
Of course, I had to, my business was all mainly online, so I could work from wherever I was in the world, actually. But something came along to work again more in Belgium. And I was like, yeah, actually, I see this as a test. I see this as, if I can do this, it is a Saturday and I'm at work now. So I'm working 6 days out of 7, and I do 10 to 12 hours a day. And actually I'm feeling pretty well. So I see this as a test. If I can perform in this, I can do more in the future. And I put it out some goals a year ago before I went. When I was in Portugal, I wrote everything in a little book. It's called My Little Bible. everything is inside for my Lyme disease. All my future of what I think my life would be is written down. And I wrote down some short-term and long-term goals. And with this in mind, I just flow through life and see where I will come.
So Axel, for context, and again, for our listeners, you thought you were going to die. You were bedbound at various stages of your healing. And today, literally as we speak, you're at work. You're working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, correct? That's how much you've improved in your Lyme journey.
Yeah, 100%. I was scared to lose my life 2 years ago. And today I'm thinking, actually, I'm gonna tell you something else. In about 6 days, I'm running a 24-hour car race. That was a little childhood dream of mine. And yeah, I'm just gonna do it. I decided to, they asked me if I wanted to drive. And I said, of course, it's a childhood dream. And they asked me 100 days before the start. And I was like, I'm going to do everything every day. I'm going to gain every day 1% with the knowledge I have. And I will be on the starting line and I will go for it. And we are 1 week away from the start. And yeah, we're just going to see what it brings. And I have some good feeling with it.
I mean, what a transformation. Well, that's amazing. And I'm stepping on Rich's toes a little bit here with his part of the journey, but I have one final question before Rich picks up. You did mention your supplement company, 4 Gold. Am I saying that right? Is it FOR, 4 Gold? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
no, it's a 4. It's a letter.
Oh, the number 4 and then the word gold.
Yeah.
GOLD.
Number 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to us about 4 Gold, because obviously being, going through this Lyme journey, you've learned what supplements have helped you the most. So is 4 Gold something you built out of what you learned from your Lyme experience and something that can help other people in the Lyme community? I want to learn more about the supplement company.
It was not built to help people with Lyme disease, but it was intentionally built to get the most high quality supplements on the market, because we know it was full of shit. And especially for people with gut health problems like me and Brent. Brent has his Crohn's disease and I had my Lyme disease, but I didn't know it. I just had really bad gut health. We decided to make very clean and good products. What we have now, we have some patented products on gut health and on like for example our nutrigenomic recovery that can really change your way in recovery and gut health, and it's really working well. It also helped me in my recovery process.
So Axel, why don't you talk to us about the part of the transformation you had to make as an athlete? We talked a little bit about the advantages that athletes have when they go on this journey, because they understand the importance of teams and they're very good at building teams. But there are the downsides to being an athlete going through this journey, and one of the downsides is that you were a part of this suck it up culture where you just sort of monitored everything and pushed further and monitored and pushed further, and you had to learn how to get away from the suck it up culture and move to the listen to your body culture, or listen to the body realities. Talk to us about that part of your transformation.
Of course, my family has always been very hard on themselves. My father he's a professional businessman. He did triathlon. He was also really good at riding motocross. So he was always hard on himself. He built a company with a lot of people. He was never at home. He was always working full gas, and he was trying to do the social life as well. But it's difficult. My brother was really a suck it up person. He was not talking emotions. He was only focusing on his job, and it was riding as fast as he can with the bike. So if I then came with some things like, I have pain here or a pain there, they were like, just get along with it. It will be fine in some days. Of course, it was not like this, but it was difficult.
Right. So you also had to change your relationship with exercise. Excuse me. As an athlete, you were always exercising aggressively, right? And we talked a little bit about the inverted U. And then you pivoted back and you had a more healthy relationship with exercise. And that more healthy relationship with exercise served you, and you were listening to your body. And if your body said, don't do it, you didn't do it. If your body said, okay, you should do more, you did more, but you're doing your exercise to serve you so that you would move and you would detox and you would be in a healthy place. So talk to us about how that part of the transformation was important for your healing.
Of course, before I had Lyme, I was running 30 kilometers. I was doing 200 kilometers on a bicycle. Not so much, but I was doing this. And I know even when I was feeling bad, it would serve me in the future that I was getting more fit. But now everything my body is telling me is serving me, and I have to listen to that. And if I decide mentally I'm going to run 10K today and my body is telling me no, and I'm going to do the 10K, I will be sick for 3 weeks. So my body is telling me what I want, what I need to know. I just need to listen to it. And it has it's a very silent communication, but if I don't listen to it, I will always have the consequences.
Well, and I do want to challenge you on that, because I'm not sure that the communication is so silent, right? Our body is always talking to our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is always talking with our cognitive brain, and then our cognitive brain is talking again with our subconscious mind and talking to the body, right? There is this communication, and really the question is, are we going to join the communication? Are we going to participate in the communication? Are we just going to ignore what's going on and do either what a monitor is telling us to do, or doing what our adrenaline rush wants us to do? And that's really the key, right? You just sort of started to participate in the conversation.
I was always really stressed at work. I was waking up at 5:30, drinking a coffee, and I just went with it. And then you never have a time to listen. It was only when my doctor said you need to try meditation, because then it's the only time you can listen to what your body is telling you, that I was really listening. And it was when I was feeling the rest that I could feel my body recovering. And it's only in a state of really much relaxation when my body can recover. Before, when I was sleeping, I was feeling good the next day. It's only when I'm sleeping really high quality that I'm feeling good. So I need to look for the really high quality sleep. And I can only do this with doing meditation and breath work and saunas. And when I do this, I know the next day will be perfect. So yeah, it's just a process of, first you ignore it because you think like, hey man, get along, you can do it, but your body is always telling you no, so you have to listen, and then you will understand your body more and more.
Axel, one of the things that was really clear about the early part of our conversation is that you were an adrenaline junkie. You were constantly engaging in behaviors and activities that would give you an adrenaline rush. And you were doing that all the time, right? That's who you were. That was your life. That's what you were doing, even though it was causing you to suffer broken bones and broken necks and having surgeries and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you came to a place where now you started to sit still. You were meditating, you were resting, you were sleeping, but you are now bringing the adrenaline piece of this into your life in a healthy way, in a balanced way. You're going out and you are now engaging in activities that are giving you a rush, but it's not the constant place where you are existing. So talk about that part of your transformation, how the adrenaline elements became a positive element that allowed you to have some enjoyment, but at the same time, most of your life was in a meditative or in a quiet space where you were able to listen to yourself and follow your body to a place where you could be physically healthy.
I know that I need some adrenaline to be happy and to have some goals in the future to stay mentally sane. So what in the beginning I was always chasing this adrenaline. I was doing so much of crazy shit to get this kind of rush, but it always crashes really fast. So you always have to replace it. Of course, I don't drink and smoke, but I don't do drugs, but I was always chasing something adrenaline side. The moment I sit still, I was feeling the rest coming over me. And in the beginning, it took me only the rest. So it was only meditation, only staying calm, because it was making me so happy on the inside that I knew that I can also be happy with nothing, with no fancy things, with not riding a car, racing bikes, all these kind of stuff. But then I was doing too much of this kind of stuff. I was doing too much of relaxation. I also need a bit of action and motivation to go to work and go to all these regular kind of things. So I implemented it for a little bit, and this is working for me really well.
So Axel, I think one of the really important takeaways here, one of the contrasts between the beginning of this podcast in your early life and now the life that you're leading now, is you're setting proper boundaries, right? You're bringing balance to your life. Right? Your early life, you were recklessly driving through the forest on your bike, and you weren't taking any precautions to protect yourself from tick bites or tick diseases. You were driving your motocross bike all the time, and you were gaining all this adrenaline rush, but you were crashing and getting hurt, and you were having surgeries. And now we have a very different Axel, right? He is someone who is goal-oriented. He is somebody who sets targets for himself. He's someone who understands that with balance, he can have these adrenaline rushes or these activities that cause him to gain enjoyment. But at the same time, he also is setting proper safety precautions in place for himself so that he's not getting hurt and he's not putting himself in a position where he's suffering while chasing this drug. So I think that's a perfect place to transition to the end of the podcast, which is, as a child, you're running around the forest and getting bitten by ticks. And you didn't take any precautions. As a child, you were engaging in all kinds of reckless activities that were causing you to suffer injuries. And now you're not. You're now putting proper parameters in place so that you can have a healthy relationship with these activities. Let's talk about having a healthy relationship with ticks and activities where you can come in contact with ticks. So if God forbid, one of the people who were so good to you during this journey, one of your best friends, for example, who are now part of your For Gold business. If one of them came into the room that you're sitting in right after this podcast, and he had a tick biting him, what would you recommend that he do so he wouldn't have to go on a chronic Lyme disease journey?
First of all, I would be really happy if they ask my help, because that's the first thing. And I would say to them, immediately go to your doctor with the tick. We take it off. We send the tick in to see if it has any infections, and we take some blood work, and you start immediately with 21 days of doxycycline to make sure if there is an infection that you will be fast on it. It doesn't hurt your body that bad to take 21 days of doxycycline just as a precaution than if you get Lyme disease afterwards. That's what I would do. And I also say that because a lot of people in Belgium text me through Instagram or Facebook that know that I have chronic Lyme, and they are scared. They see a tick and they text me and they're like fully, oh no, I will get sick like you and I cannot do anything in 3 months and I will die. And I said, no, it's not that bad, but we will first see how far it will come. And yeah, but always I hear the same story that they went to their doctor. The doctor said, don't worry about it. There is nothing wrong with the tick bite. If you don't see the red circle, I will give you 4 days or 7 days of antibiotics and you will be fine. And then they call me, yeah, but I'm not sure. And then I say, call your doctor or call my doctor, the one that helped me. He will immediately give you 21 days because he knows how dangerous Lyme can be, and you will be fine.
So Axel Roelants, I can't thank you enough, and the folks over at For Gold for sacrificing some of your time with us this morning to share your really great story with the folks here at the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to our Tick Bootcamp interview with our guest, Axel Roelants. To our listeners, we have a call to action. First, if you'd like to learn more about Axel, please visit him on Instagram at Axel Roelants. That's AXEL ROELANTS. Second, if you've enjoyed this episode of our Tick Bootcamp podcast, please share it with your friends on social media. Third, Tick Bootcamp has created a Tick Bite Blueprint that has been inspired by the information that has been shared with us by past podcast guests. We urge you to visit our website at tickbootcamp.com/bite to view our blueprint. Fourth, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify to get your automatic episode updates of our Tick Bootcamp podcast. Please take a minute to leave us an honest review on your podcast platform of choice. And finally, if you'd like to search our podcast library of almost 300 episodes, subscribe to our email list or share feedback with us, please visit our website at tickbootcamp.com. Thank you, as always, for listening.